Keto is better than carnivore. I got bad news. Carnivore is better than keto. I got even worse news. Keto is better than vegan. No, that's not true. Vegan's better than all the diets combined. Paleo's the way forward. Fasting is the only way. Calories in, calories out. Everybody knows that. Hey, you know what? If it fits your macros, we are so divided when it comes to food. And it's a terrible thing to see. I hate to see it. So the one thing that used to unite us is food. Throughout history, we were able to sit down with each other. People were able to lay down their swords and unite over food. And maybe they had disagreements, but food was the one thing that brought everybody together. But now, food, along with all this other stuff, food seeks to divide us. And it has divided us. We are so dead set in our ways. We've created these individual camps. You know, you got the keto camp, carnivore camp, vegans, all these different camps. And everybody just wants to argue amongst ourselves about this food's better than that food, or you should be eating this, you shouldn't be eating that. I mean, name calling, just trashing each other on social media, all this stuff. Everybody's just at each other's throat about food. I sit down and think about it. I'm like, what got us here? Like, how did we wind up in this position? And the more I think about it, I think it actually becomes really clear, and I think it's that it's actually not our fault. I think what has divided us is that we're all so sick and we're all grasping at straws trying to figure out where we went wrong. We've lowered ourselves to blaming each other. We've lowered ourselves to blaming the foods themselves and saying, well, this is the problem. You know, plants are the problem. Or meat's the problem. And again, it's not our fault, because a lot of this comes from ideologies and studies that have been done to demonize certain foods, largely in the name of profit. I mean, a lot of this stuff is just profit and greed driven. Honestly, it really is. But the people themselves, us, we as people, have adopted these mindsets and have gone after each other, blaming the foods and blaming each other for the problems that we're having. You know, saying that plants are bad and that meat's bad and all this other stuff, saturated fat, seed oils, I mean, you name it. And don't get me wrong, there is a lot of this stuff that's bad. Seed oils and things like that, processed food, hyper-processed food, are inherently bad. I believe that. Maybe it's not true, but I believe it based off my experience and what I've seen. And I think there's a lot of evidence out there to suggest that that is the case. But when it comes to whole foods, plants, animal products, things like that, and blaming each other, blaming the foods and blaming each other, I think it just misses the point. And the point is that we shouldn't be at each other's throat. We shouldn't be fighting amongst ourselves. We should be fighting against the people that have created this atmosphere. Because the people that have created this are the ones that are focused on profit and greed. It's the big industries. It's the globalists. It's the governing bodies. I mean, it's the mega corporations. It's all these people that are basically exploiting our addiction to these processed foods and are exploiting our illnesses, and they're exploiting all of our detriment to essentially make us fight against each other. We're focusing on fighting against the wrong people. We shouldn't be fighting our neighbors. We shouldn't be fighting each other. We should be going after these people that are creating these foods that are causing these problems. And if we can get away from these foods and focus on real whole foods, specifically real whole foods from people in our community, because at least that food doesn't have herbicides and pesticides and anti-biologics, and it's not full of arsenic and lead and cadmium and synthetic food coatings, and it's not processed, like all these things that are in food that's just absolutely destroying our health. It doesn't have all that stuff in there. If we can get away from that and just focus on real whole foods, I don't think we'd be fighting against each other, because when we get away from those foods, our health improves by default. I mean, it has to. You're cutting out all this stuff that's actually destroying your health. Your health's going to improve. So instead of attacking vegans and instead of vegans attacking carnivores and all these things, I mean, yes, I understand there's an ethical argument there. But the fact remains that we have been eating meat since the dawn of time. There's cave paintings to prove it. I find artifacts in my backyard all the time that prove that we've been eating meat. Arrowheads, scrapers, all kinds of stuff. But there's also artifacts in my backyard that have proven that Indians used to eat plants and that they've used grinding stones to grind wheat to make flour and things like that. So I think, the argument goes both ways. Where we run into the big problem is where we try to force that ideology on the other group, which shouldn't really be a thing. And again, I think it boils down to us adopting the mindset that we've kind of been programmed to have, which is the food is the problem, not the people that's producing the food. Because I think that's the actual problem, is that it's the industries and the people that are producing the food, the way it's being made and what's in it, is what's causing the problem. So laying the blame on each other is not going to get us anywhere. The sooner we can unite and come together over food like we used to and set our petty differences aside, and if we can focus on these real whole foods, I think we'll realize pretty fast that the food is not the problem and that people should be free to eat whatever the heck they want. And nobody should be forcing ideologies on somebody else just because they have a certain belief. I don't think anybody should care enough about what somebody else wants to eat, especially people they don't know, thinking they know what's best for them, because everybody's different. Everyone is very unique and they have their own very specific way they should be eating that's going to be optimal for them. And for some people that may mean more plants than animals, and for some people that may mean a lot more animals than plants. And for other people it could be a balance of all those things. But I think it only works if you're focused on real whole foods that are void of toxins and chemicals and antibiologics and all these harmful things that are hurting our health. I think it only works if we remove processed foods. And if we focus on whole foods, you can pretty much eat whatever the heck you want and be relatively healthy, to be honest about it. I think you really can. I'm going to continue to talk about the carnivore diet and the healing power of meat because it's had such profound impacts on me. But I also believe that it's not optimal for everybody. I don't believe everybody should be carnivore. I don't believe everybody needs to be carnivore. And I truly believe that there are people out there that probably do better eating more of a varied diet with other whole foods. And I think, again, that's very unique and very individualized, and it depends on the person. But I think everybody needs to figure that out for themselves. And it basically just comes down to learning how to eat intuitively, not eating processed food, and focusing on whole foods from people you can trust. So let me know in the comments if you agree with this. Have you also noticed that there's been a lot of division around food lately? And let me know if you agree or disagree about diets being very individualized, or if you believe that there's certain foods that are optimal for people. If this resonates with you, like, subscribe, join the Apex Tribe. I'll see you on the next one.